We make it a regular habit to check in on how we think about the things that happen to us and around us. The question this week is, how often do we check in on how we feel? And do we put the same value into how we feel as what we think? I am Tavish Carduff. It is Emotion Week at our raw material. So we start the second 4 weeks with emotion and readjusting our shoulders and our neck, taking a deep breath, and letting it out. That is the way that we handle and start to allow our emotions. If we think of emotions like the weather, they are an actual indicator of what our circumstances around us are doing to us or making us feel. Our emotions are things that we have somehow decided that we don't have time for, or they need to be saved for the times that we're alone. We've really got this backwards in terms of the amount of disease and dis-ease and uncomfortableness. And, I think so many of our illnesses and chronic conditions come from emotions that we haven't been willing to deal with. Now, before anybody jumps on me about willingness, let's just say that there is a lot hidden within this physical body. There are so many reactions that we have to emotional situations where we don't react outwardly. And so those types of reactions stick within our body. We feel them. When we breathe deeply into our body, we're going to find some resistance. I don't care who you are or how clear you've been making yourself for years and years. The fact that we are in a physical body, period, means that we hold tension. We hold this construct that is, part of this official line of consciousness, what I affectionately refer to as the O-lock, oxygen locked. And in the O-lock, we're given free will with our individuated personality. So whatever our life is, whatever we came in with, the raw material, now we start to see, how do we feel about the things that we've been given, the structure that our life has provided for us, at least up to this point. And, touching on last week's ignorance, as we move from ignorance into emotion, we can now attach feelings to the things that we maybe in our past or our circumstances, we don't want to look at those things or acknowledge them because we feel like somehow we will be further harmed by them. And the reality is, if we go touch on those emotions, if we let ourselves feel even objectively something for the protector that is in place taking care of this emotion that we didn't get to just breathe through. And if you are around me very long, you will hear me talk about emotions as things that we can't push aside or, save for later. We can't stick them in a box and hope that that box is going to just remain quiet until we're ready for it. At some point, things around us, circumstances around us will build to some kind of crescendo that has us, the feelings kind of imploding on us. Or, like I said, physical, chronic conditions and illnesses, or inability to communicate or connect. And I think a lot of human beings walk around like that. This part is important, and this might be where I lose a couple of people, but I definitely believe that we are all connected. We are part of the same energy that we call God, universe, creation. I don't really care what word is used for it, but the thing that is, the energy that is all of us. So when we think about being individuated or separate from that energy, there's an emotional reaction to it. There is a visceral reaction and a physical projection that we each have that keeps us separate from the whole. We are a different identity. So if we can start looking at ourselves as part of the whole and our individuated identity and have both of those have equal value and meaning, then we're just really listening to two different voices and we're checking in on the emotion of each of these places. When we do that, something fascinating happens. The space for reasoning and understanding and connecting the dots on the things that bother us gets a lot bigger. And we start to see our emotions as indicators, as something powerful that shows us where our blocks are. So when we go back into the emotion of a thing, we're not going in to make ourselves feel sad, although, a fleeting sad feeling is just as easy to pass through as a fleeting happy feeling. We attach these meanings to it. But if we start looking at them as experience, when we start to see, what these emotions do for us in terms of transforming us or moving us, or, we've got two things coming up against each other, they can even be two positive things. The emotion of letting go of one thing you want in favor of something else, or just having to give the right of way, is always going to cause enough conflict to create emotion. And the ignorance that we feel, not knowing choices to make, not knowing whether, this path or that is the right one, creates all kinds of emotion. When we handle the emotion by just letting ourselves feel it, knowing that it's a feeling. It's not reality. Reality is our belief system and our value system and how we navigate that. So when we can hold these things separate, we give ourselves a framework for understanding our own thoughts and feelings. And that feels so solid, it allows manifesting at a rate and at a volume and I don't know, I like just whatever rapid energy you can come up with, it moves it so much faster. So the more we move things away from us and pushed, out of our immediate reactive space into a space where we can see them a little more clearly, we start to untangle all of these roots that keep us, tied to the things that bother us or trigger us. There's a lot to be triggered by. If you look around the world right now, there's emotion everywhere. And to pretend like there is a place and time for this when feelings are erupting all over the world, it doesn't matter whether you're in your work day, we're still blowing people up in parts of the world. Things are happening that are atrocities. And if we are compartmentalizing our feelings at this point, we are doing humanity a disservice. That doesn't mean go all in on sadness or injustice or outrage. That means do what you can to find the human spaces within yourself, the emotions that tie to something positive, that resolve this conflict once and for all, if possible. But imagining this idea that it could happen is the best we can do for a situation that we can't affect right now. Right now, their food pillars cut off. Their nurturing is out the window. Reactive people. Reactive, it's been reactive in the Middle East for so long that we've grown accustomed to it and almost given the Middle East that personality. It's not fair. It's a conflict that we all don't have to feel emotional about because it's far enough away from us that it feels removed. But if you go inside yourself and look at the emotions that you just feel in general right now, you're going to see that it's unrest that relates back to trauma in our world. Our mood dictates what we are able to hear. So when we're wound up, there's very little we're going to be able to take in. When we're up against our own triggers, there's very little that we are going to be able to accept from someone else that's going to be helpful. But when we can take a breath, acknowledge our feeling, and recognize that there's a reality behind the feeling that is separate from the feeling, that gives us the space to start taking in good information and taking in information that leads us back into our own creativity, our own imagination, and our own ability to see the resources around us. As a practice guidance for this week, be willing to ask the question, how does that make you feel? Whether it's your kids or coworkers or online people, instead of getting to what people think, let's really go in on what things feel like. Let's take a step into emotion with curiosity and objectivity, and not a need to, pull a blanket over our head and be under the covers, but in a way that lets our heart energies connect to all of the people that are even unable to access their own emotions. I will be back next week to talk about listening, our second spiritual week. Until then, enjoy the week.